What side proposition wants is accurate representation for everyone. However, the method that they promote leaves everyone with absolutely no say as to who actually rules over them. So we beg the question, how is that representation for everyone? Right, so let's deal with side proposition's case. And I'll be dealing with it in my rebuttal. I'll be rebutting it on two issues, representation and Parliament. So let's go straight into this first issue of representation. Well, firstly, they told us that people are usually chosen for popularity, and that somehow that's a problem. Well, firstly, ladies and gentlemen, the reason these people are popular is not just because they are pretty faces. If they are popular, it's because they have good ideas and people like those ideas. Therefore, we see no problem in them being chosen for that sole reason, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, that already falls away. And then they told us that no, we need to represent minority groups. And they told us that minority parties don't have enough power in Parliament. So I'll be dealing with this on 4 levels of analysis. Firstly, minority groups are already represented, ladies and gentlemen, because we know that Parliament is a reflection of the proportional votes of people. Therefore, whatever they voted, ladies and gentlemen, that's what's in Parliament right now. On a second level of analysis, this takes away from exactly that, ladies and gentlemen, because minority groups don't even have a say anymore. They don't get to vote who goes into power, ladies and gentlemen. And we need to analyze the fact that in a minority group, we don't all just have the same ideas. People in minority groups, ladies and gentlemen, are individuals. Therefore, we don't see how just putting in people from the same minority group means we'll have the same type of ideals, ladies and gentlemen. And even if we had to concede to the fact that people in the same minority group, or just group in general, have the same ideals, we do feel that those minority groups would then still be overpowered by other majority groups, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, we don't see how that solves that problem either. Okay, so then they told us, ladies and gentlemen, that no one political group will overpower everything else. And by their own analysis, ladies and gentlemen, of people of the same group just having the same type of mentality, we still see that that's not mutually exclusive to our side. Therefore, they don't really show us how they solve this problem. Okay, and then they also brought up this idea, still under the representation, that people need to talk. We don't see how they're talking in this method either, ladies and gentlemen. They in fact have no say. The little say they did have has been taken away from them. So in fact, this is a detriment to the effect that they have on this, right? And then the last issue under this whole issue of demography was the fact of people of the same type of race or gender having the same type of ideas, ladies and gentlemen. And we've already told you that that is an absolute fallacy. There's no link, ladies and gentlemen, between women and how they feel. For instance, some women might feel that the man should be completely dominant in a home. Some women might not feel that. It's not the same type of idea. It does not automatically mean that they have same ideas. Therefore, we're done with representation. On my last issue, under my rebuttal, is Parliament, right? So then we looked at the fact that we looked at functionality of Parliament. And all they really told us under functionality of Parliament is that, everyone's going to be represented, therefore we're going to function. What we did tell you, ladies and gentlemen, under that is that the fact that everyone's represented is already a lie. And secondly, who represents them is also a problem, ladies and gentlemen, as we're not sure of the capability of those who are represented. And then there's a whole issue of people buying in to the status quo. Ladies and gentlemen, we feel that people do buy into the status quo. And we actually feel that they're less likely to buy into what they're proposing. Because in what they're proposing, they have absolutely no say in who rules over them. Right? And then they also told us on the last issue is that under Parliament is that we have the same people in power all the time. Firstly, they showed us no harm into this, ladies and gentlemen. So we won't even rebut it, because there is no harm to it. Right, let me move on to my positive matter, ladies and gentlemen, and what we as side opposition are bringing to the table, rather than the rather petty points that they've brought forward. So I'll be dealing with the whole issue, ladies and gentlemen, of international relations. I'll be dealing with the whole issue of international relations, and then I'll also be dealing with representation. Right. So I'll be dealing with political function and how I'll be dealing with political function and international perception. So firstly, let's look at this whole issue of political function. Firstly, let's analyze the status quo. In the status quo, we have different parties, right? And these different parties are a collection of people with the same ideas. That's what a political party is, right? So in Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, there are ideas that are channeled by each political party. And even though there's some disagreement between them, it's a good balance, ladies and gentlemen. We don't have too many different opinions. However, with what they are proposing, ladies and gentlemen, it's individuals of completely different opinions, individuals that are completely different to each other, ladies and gentlemen. And what we feel about this, ladies and gentlemen, is that it ends the balance in politics, and that now we have way too many opinions, and this may lead to stagnation in the process of passing legislation, as there are now many conflicting views, ladies and gentlemen, and it's a lot harder to reach, and it's a lot harder to, in a minute, ma'am, and it's a lot harder to reach a decision, rather than when we have political parties with collective ideas, ladies and gentlemen, and where there's a good balance of disagreement.
If
Yes,
the
ma'am.
system is representative, don't you think there'll still be a majority view that will prevent your whole point of stagnation?
I'm not quite sure what that meant, but what I think it meant is that she's saying that even in our political function, there's one group that will have the majority say, and this will lead to stagnation. I don't see how that leads to stagnation, because the fact that there's one group that wants the same thing and a big group that wants the same thing kind of means that that one group is going to get their way. And that doesn't really lead to stagnation. In fact, it leads to more efficiency. So that POI falls away. Right, now let's look at my last issue in my positive matter, which is the whole issue of international perception. So what we have to understand is that Parliament runs a country. And once we disable the functionality of a parliament in the way that their policy will, with the analysis that my first speaker has brought forth to you, ladies and gentlemen, we take away the functionality of the government. And by this, we take away the legitimacy of a government, ladies and gentlemen. And what we feel is that when we take away the legitimacy of a government, this leads to us having a bad international perception, ladies and gentlemen. And this is something that we, as side opposition, are not vying for here today, which is why we feel that this motion should not stand. All right. So let's just look at the debate on a whole. So what the first speaker told us, ladies and gentlemen, is that what they want to do is return politics to a representative nature. They want everyone to be represented. And as I've already proven to you, ladies and gentlemen, they have dismally failed in what they have said they want to do. As in fact, what they are doing is taking away the only say that people do have in terms of what happens in their country, ladies and gentlemen. And on those grounds, they are already wrong. So let me tell you what we have done and what we have told you why in the current status quo that we are advocating and we prefer to theirs, it actually happens, ladies and gentlemen. Because people have some sort of say, and they vote for their ideas and their ideals, and for their best representatives to stand for them in Parliament, we feel that they are represented, ladies and gentlemen. We brought forth the whole idea of how demography does not equal representation, and they failed to adequately reply to that, ladies and gentlemen. We told you of the nature of Parliament, and how they have massive power, and how we do not want random little people who might have no political capability whatsoever running our country. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, to let people be represented, we want them to have a say.